When we come to God, we come with high hopes and a humble heart. Today's devotional is really about being safe in the shepherd's arms. So let's get into it. This Bible verse behind me doesn't really have anything to do with the thoughts today, but what a beautiful message, so I'm just going to leave it there. We're still with Max Lucado looking at the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Thou art with me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. In ancient Israel, shepherds used oil for 3 different purposes: to repel insects, to prevent conflicts, and to heal wounds. Bugs bug people, but they can kill sheep. Flies, mosquitoes, gnats, all those can turn summertime into torture for livestock. Consider nose flies, for example, which is not something I heard of until I read this devotional. If they succeed in depositing their eggs into a sheep's nose, those eggs become worm-like larvae and literally drive the sheep insane. One shepherd explains that for relief from that agonizing annoyance, sheep will deliberately bang their heads against trees, rocks, posts, bushes, whatever they can find. And in an extreme case of intense infestation, a sheep can even kill itself, just searching for some relief from the aggravation. So when a swarm of noseflies appears, sheep panic. I think if I knew what they looked like at this point, I would panic. Sheep run. They hide. They toss their head up and down for hours. They forget to eat, they're not able to sleep, ewes stop milking, lambs stop growing, the whole flock gets disrupted and even destroyed by just a few flies. So for this very specific reason, a shepherd anoints the sheep, covers their head in this oil-like repellent. The fragrance keeps the insects away and the sheep at peace. At peace, that is, until mating season. Because most of the year sheep are calm and passive animals, but during mating season everything changes. Max says here the rams put the ram in rambunctious. They strut around the pasture and they flex their necks, trying to win the attention of the new girl on the block. And when a ram catches her eye, she throws her head back and says, "I want you, baby." This is all written in, I swear. Well, about that time, her boyfriend shows up and tells her to go somewhere else, saying, "You better move, sweetie. This could get ugly." And the 2 rams lower their heads and pow! Old-fashioned headbutt breaks out. Well, to avoid injury, the shepherd anoints these rams. He smears a slippery, greasy substance all over the nose and head of the rams, and that lubrication causes them to slip off of each other, to glance rather than crash into one another. They still tend to get hurt, however. And those wounds are the 3rd reason that the shepherd anoints his sheep. Most of the wounds a shepherd treats are just results of living in a pasture. Thorns prick or rocks cut. A sheep rubs its head too hard against a tree. Sheep get hurt. So as a result, a shepherd often daily inspects the sheep. He searches for cuts and abrasions. He doesn't want a cut to worsen. He doesn't want today's wound to become tomorrow's infection. And the whole point of all of this is that neither does God. Just like sheep, we have wounds, but our wounds are of the heart that come after disappointment. And if we're not careful, those wounds lead to bitterness. And just like sheep, we need to be treated. Psalm 100 verse 3 says, "He made us, and we belong to him. We are his people, the sheep he tends." Sheep aren't the only ones who need preventative care, and sheep aren't the only ones who need a healing touch. We get irritated with each other, we butt heads, and then we get wounded. Many of our disappointments in life began as irritations. The large portions of our problems are not lion-sized attacks, but rather the day-to-day swarm of frustrations and mishaps and heartaches. You don't get invited to the dinner party, you don't make the team, you don't get the scholarship, someone didn't notice your hard work, your husband doesn't like your new dress, your neighbor doesn't notice the mess in his yard. You find yourself more irritable, more gloomy, more hurt. Like the sheep, you don't sleep well, you don't eat well, you may even hit your head against that tree a few times. Or you may hit your head against a person. It is amazing how hard-headed we can be with one another. Some of our deepest hurts come from just butting heads with people. And like the sheep, the rest of our wounds come from living on the pasture. The pasture of the sheep is much more appealing. They face wounds from thorns and thistles, but we have to face aging, loss, and illness. If we live long enough in this world, each of us is going to face deep, deep disappointments in one way or another. So we, like the sheep, get wounded. And we, like the sheep, have a shepherd. Remember the words I just read? We belong to him. We, the people, are sheep. He will do for us what the shepherd does for the sheep. He will tend to us if we let him. How do we let him? Well, the steps are simple. First, we got to go to him. David would trust his wounds with no one else beside God. He said, "You anoint my head with oil," not your prophets or your teachers or your counselors. Others may guide us to God. Others may help us understand God, but no one does the work of God, for only God can heal. And God heals the brokenhearted. So have we taken our disappointments to God? Maybe we've shared them with our neighbor or our family or our friends, but have you gone to God? James says in chapter 5, verse 13, anyone who is having troubles should pray. So before we go anywhere else with our disappointments, we need to go to God. And maybe we don't want to trouble God with our hurts. Don't we hear that all the time? He's got famines and pestilence and war. He won't care about my little struggles. That's what we tell ourselves. But why don't we let God decide that? He cared about a wedding enough to provide some wine. He cared enough about Peter's tax payment to give him a coin. He cared enough about that one woman at the well to give her answers. 1 Peter 5:7 says, he cares about you. So our first step is to go to the right person. Go to God. Our second step is to assume the right posture. Bow before God. In order to be anointed, the sheep have to stand still, lower their heads, and let the shepherd do his work. So Peter urges us to, in 1 Peter 5:6, be humble under God's powerful hand, so he will lift you up when the right time comes. When we come to God, we make requests. We don't make demands. We come with high hopes and a humble heart. We state what we want, but we pray for what is right. And if God gives us the prison of Rome rather than the mission of Spain, we accept it because we know that God will always give what is right to his people who cry to him night and day, and he will not be slow to answer them. We go to him, we bow before him, and we put our trust in him. That's the third thing. The sheep don't understand why the oil repels the flies. The sheep don't understand how the oil heals the wounds. In fact, all the sheep really know is that something is happening in the presence of the shepherd. And really, that's all we need to know as well. Psalm 25 starts with, Lord, I give myself to you, my God. I trust you. Go, bow, trust. Worth a try, don't you think?